Mykel Williams at 11. Hit the mute. We're going to talk about it.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.
Sprint Ride Option Podcast.
New Ride Option Podcast. The 49ers have a new player. Mykel Williams out of Georgia is pick at 11. Jason Aponte, I'm Andrew Pasquini, Sprint Ride Option Podcast. And Jason, no time to waste. What's your instant? We're here for an instant reaction. What's the instant reaction to Mykel Williams?
Defensive line was always going to be the pick. I think we just waffled back and forth about who it would be. I thought it was going to be Walter Nolan, but there's no way that you bring back Robert Saleh, bring in Gus Bradley, and then go with one of these offensive linemen that wasn't Membu or Campbell. And taking an offensive lineman for the sake of taking an offensive lineman is just poor process. And you can still address that. I feel like after the top two guys, offensive line is better in the second and third rounds. But what you had to do when you bring back Robert Saleh, the 49ers run defense was bad, is you get yourself a guy who can run defend, who's an edge, who has a motor. This is clearly a Robert Saleh influence pick. If Saleh wanted him, then that's a good thing, and it can only stand to improve the defense, especially in the run game. And if you listen to John Lynch talk, he said, set the edge. That was your first indication of where it was going. Sometimes the word salad actually has some vegetables in it.
I like that. It has the word salad has vegetables. I like that. But no, listen, I what I really like about this pick is it's kind of that twist back to addressing the run defense, right? Because last year tried this crazy thing where the entire base defense was just pass rushers, right? And it did not work against the run. So Mykel Williams, he not only gives you that run stopping option on the edge that the Niners really lacked last season, but he also has the traits to really develop into I'm not going to say top flight pass rusher, but a very solid pass rusher across Nick Bosa. And with how good Nick Bosa is, you don't need anything crazy. You don't need a Carter, right? I mean, it'd be great to that type of player, but if you get somebody on the other side who's just consistent at minimum in the pass rush, they'll be fine. Getting somebody who can stop the run, very important, and I love that. I was a little surprised it wasn't Walter Nolan just with how much smoke was there. But obviously, I don't know, maybe Walter Nolan, I think still a stretch. Maybe he's available at his spot in the second round where the Niners move up and get him. Well, you never know what's going to happen with the draft. But I really like the position. I think that obviously was the priority. You said it already. The only way they were going to go offensive tackle was if Membu or Campbell dropped. I know the Zabel thing was kind of fun to meme yesterday. I think that was the I didn't. My mental health didn't need that mock draft, to be honest. But I was pretty confident they were going to line the whole time. And Mykel Williams, it's just going back to just getting somebody who can stop that on this defensive line, and then you have Robert Saleh and Chris Kosaric to develop him into a better pass rusher, which would be fantastic for the 49ers defense.
And can we talk about how those first 10 picks were almost a dream? Like the only way that it could have went any better was somebody reaching for a quarterback. Like that was an absolute dream setup. So at 11, you had it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because you have your pick of Walter Nolan, Jalen Walker, obviously, Mykel Williams. But now, unfortunately, all we're going to do for the rest of the time, for the rest of their NFL careers, is compare all of the players that were on the board at pick 11 with Mykel Williams. And that's just the nature of the beast. But that's what's going to happen is we are going to assess a few years down the line. Well, they could have had Walter Nolan or Derek Harmon or, Will Johnson or, that's just what the nature of the beast is going to be. But if Mykel is like this run stuffer and somebody who can develop more as a pass rusher, then it'll be all for naught. But unfortunately, he is going to be compared to the guys that were still on the board.
Yeah, I think I would have preferred Jalen Walker here. That's my personal preference. So I kind of liked his versatility. Definitely more of a project. So that's why I'm fine with the Mykel Williams selection. It's more of a sure thing. It's less of a risk pick, and it's more of, I guess you'd say, the higher floor pick. But again, as we said, we like to talk about Chris Kosaric with this defensive line and him developing players. I'm excited to see what this leads to. So it's a good pick. It addresses the biggest need. I mean, if you look at the defensive line depth chart right now, obviously April 4th. We don't have to worry about it yet. But it's very barren, and they needed somebody. Yeah, that top 10 fell perfect for the 49ers for what they needed. I kind of meme myself into maybe Mason Graham drops a little further. I thought maybe Cleveland is back with Chicago. Gets weird that way. But hey, Mason wasn't there. I think Mykel Williams was the next best option for what was going to be there outside of Jalen Walker. But again, it's a safer pick. It's less risk, and that's kind of what the Niners need. They don't need to really risk. They need somebody who's going to make an impact in week 1, and anything to make this run defense better is a good pick.
Anything that makes this defensive line better is going to be a better pick. And I think there's multiple possibilities and ways to do this. And I think that's really what's interesting about this. If you go Walter Nolan with interior defensive line, then do you go Landon Jackson at edge, and vice versa, right? So again, like there's multiple ways to go about this. I think the 49ers were absolutely thrilled. I think that they didn't think that they were going to have their look at Williams, Nolan, and all those guys. They figured that one of them would be off the board. Almost felt like there was too many options. But with how quick the pick came in, Mykel was number 1 on their board. Like they didn't waste any time. They didn't let the clock go down. They weren't interested in trading back. They weren't interested in listening to offers. Their guy was there. So I will say this. Regardless of what you think about the pick, they are convicted in that. And I'd rather you be super confident in that than reach for something out of need or somebody you're a little wishy-washy on. If that was number 1 on your board and your guy was there, then don't even waste some time and go get him.
Yeah, and Shemar Stewart was the other really popular name. He kind of falls into that project, kind of like Jalen Walker. What really helped, I mean, if you want to talk about the top 10 picks, that Teteroa, McMillan, Kelvin Banks backpack. Just a slam dunk for the 49ers. Because that could have been a situation where it was, I mean, a lot of my drafts had a Jalen Walker 8 and then Mykel Williams at 9, and then you're just kind of left with everybody. You've kind of seen reports that the Niners were trying to move up, probably to take Mykel Williams, because it wouldn't make sense for Tet McMillan, Kelvin Banks, or Colston Loveland to move up and get those guys. So that's who they wanted, and that's, I think, to me, that's like the most comforting part about this pick is who the Niners wanted. And I know I was watching you with stats a little bit there, Steph and Levin. You guys talking about the Jed York tweet mentioning Robert Saleh maybe a concern. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but to me, it's a thing of, they brought Robert Saleh in because they trust him, and he's a guy that, again, you look at the defense from 2018 to 2019, right? And that defense was not great in 2018. They had the 2 interceptions. And what did they do? They addressed the front 7 specifically with Bosa. Obviously, Nick Bosa falls into their lap in 2019, but then Dre Greenlaw as well. They kind of addressed that front 7. And then the defense took a step forward in 2019. Obviously, they go to the Super Bowl, all that stuff. So, of course, they're going to trust what Robert Saleh has to say. This isn't the first time that he's taken a not great Niners defense and is attempting to rebuild them on the fly. Because remember, in 2018, they were supposed to be semi-decent until Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, and that's when they fell off. 2019, they stayed healthy. So their expectations for the 49ers to continue this playoff run, of course, trust Robert Saleh to be a key decision maker and who he wants for his defense, because they turned it back over to him for a reason. Absolutely turned it. They could have kept Sorensen for another year and said, you know what, let's develop and see how this turns out. Oh, they let go of Sorensen to bring in Robert Saleh. Of course, he's going to be a guy making a decision there. And I that gives me the confidence in this, that Mykel Williams is the correct guy for the 49ers.
Yeah, and Jalen Walker doesn't have to go far for his football team because the Atlanta Falcons just drafted him, so he's staying in Georgia. So he doesn't have to worry about any of that.
Jalen Walker to Atlanta, I like that. That's a solid pick for them. I like Jalen Walker.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off this. Gojira Von Jinx, channel member, appreciate you, gang. Thank God they didn't take Shemar Stewart. I would have been really upset with that, and perhaps it would have made me look like a fool in the long run if Shemar Stewart becomes this out of the home run, out of nowhere home run pick. But I just couldn't trust somebody who didn't have that type of production. And I think when you heard John Lynch say, there's traits, there's different contexts and things like that, but sometimes you got to look at the college production. I thought it kind of pretty much eliminated Shemar Stewart immediately. I thought that's who he was talking about right off the bat. So I am really glad with that as well, too. Mykel Williams might not be the sexiest pick for some people, but again, right now, when you're looking at the way that the 49ers went and they got Robert Saleh, and I'm certain, and I'm basing this on nothing but vibes, that when Robert Saleh was coming back, Robert Saleh said, I want a lot of input here, if not all the input with this first round pick, because you do have pick 11. And the 49ers said, hey, you got it, man. So, again, it wasn't a question of what position they were going to go with. It was a question of which player they were going to go with across the defensive line. And now the 49ers are in that spot where they can still strike and maybe get into the first round or move up in the second round and get a defensive tackle. I guarantee you there's going to be 2, maybe 3 more picks on the defensive line because they severely need it. 1, for them to be young, and 2, just to fill out the roster at this point.
Yeah, a name I've liked. I mean, this is a later round. Tim Smith out of Alabama. That might be a 6th round selection, but they're gonna take. So I think with the pick of Mykel Williams, kind of a run stopper. I'm curious if they go maybe more passive aggressive defensive tackle. Try that again. Kind of go back to the roots of this 49ers defense. Who exactly that is, I don't know. Because again, Niners, 43, 45, something like that. I forget the exact number they're at in the second round. I actually have it in front of me here. I can tell 43. So I don't know exactly who's going to be there. Again, maybe Walter Nolan's still available at 37, 36. Niners strike up, move there. There's a lot of options here. I'm very curious to see how they attack day 2. But I definitely think it's going to be along that defensive line. Maybe they go other edge rusher, just to get a rotational pass rusher in there. There's so many options, and that's fine because it was a very bare bones pass rush. So even if they go another edge rusher at 43, it's not the end of the world because they need a little bit of everything at this point: a run stopper, a pass defender, all that. They need defensive line help. Could be another edge rusher. I mean, Landon Jackson, there's a lot of smoke there a couple weeks ago. So I'm very curious to see how they go here at 43.
I'd love Omar Norman Lott out of Texas, man. Out of Tennessee, I'm sorry. The problem is that I think, in the wide 9 scheme, you need defensive tackles that just eat up blocks so your edge rushers can get their one-on-one matchups. But I do like his motor. I do think he is somebody that is going to be valued a little bit higher. But if that's the dream pick there at 42, I mean, look, if they want to double up on edge, then Nick Scourton, is right there for you, and if you want to do that, and also, if you watch Georgia, Williams moved around. Like, he's not exclusively an edge. He may have played more on the edge for sure, but you can line him up at DT. And I think that gives you ultimate flexibility because we know that about Yetur Gross-Matos. We know that about him. If that's the way you want to go, you can really get creative. And I do think that that's a little bit more about what Robert Saleh likes about him as well, too, is how creative he can get with the rotation of Gross-Matos and him. So it doesn't necessarily put you out from taking an edge in the second round. It's going to be very interesting. I can almost set my watch, though, to the second round being defensive line again. And that's not a big problem because I do think you can address linebacker later on. There's plenty of names that you can look at, whether it's Chris Paul Jr. or Teddy Buchanan later on. Those are guys that you can get if you want to have somebody who's there to compete with D. Winters. And we know D. Winters has a lot of injury problems and staying on the field is his biggest problem. But I still think that, edge isn't off the board here in the second round, and doubling up on edge isn't the wrong thing, especially when you consider that Williams moves around a little bit.
How about Omar Norman Lott at 44? I forgot that already. 43. There we go. I got there. Omar Norman Lott, 43, 75 Chris Paul, and then 100 Cameron Williams, right tackle out of Texas. Just a little drawn up map, right? I think that would be very solid. I think a lot. Oh, there
picks
goes
in
Walter
for
Nolan.
Arizona real quick, Andrew.
I just said it. It's Walter Nolan.
It's Walter Nolan.
Arizona goes Walter Nolan. So he's off the board. So there's potential pick at 11 goes to a division rival at 16 for Arizona. Really quick,
get ready to compare. Get ready to compare.
Yeah, that's going to be
get ready to compare
comparison.
Walter Nolan and Mykel Williams for the rest of their careers. And we're going to get an up-close look at Walter Nolan 2 times a year in Arizona. I am going to live for the discourse about who they should have taken and whose career ends up better.
Cincinnati now on the clock. Jason, Dane Brugler of The Athletic, he writes The Beast every year. It's a great draft guide. It's the reason to have an athletic scripture, in my opinion. Very in-depth. It's like 700 or 600 pages. It's very, very big. I'm going to just read off the strengths for Mykel Williams, and I'll give the weaknesses and kind of the overall. So bear with me here a little bit. The strengths for Mykel Williams for the 49ers: looks the part with an NFL frame and arm the length of an anaconda. I love draft descriptors, by the way. Uses crazy length and raw strength to jar blockers and force through bodies. Promising bull, swipe, and push-pull maneuvers. Violently tears through tight end blocks. There's a lot here that you'd like. A smart read defender and maintains gap discipline. The thing I like the most: served as a team captain for 4 games in 2024. Strong character feedback from coaches. And then Georgia head coach Kirby Smart said he's very versatile for us in terms of off the field and on the field. But there's no great value than what he does in the locker room. He's a great leader for us. Overall, just he reads well. The weakness: doesn't have a consistent rush plan or arsenal of secondary moves. We talked about it. I'm kind of over the whole doesn't have a bunch of moves things. I think moves can be taught. I think more raw talent at this point is important. I do like yell, how deep is the bag, though? That's fun to say. So I guess
What's the bag?
Gets too upright at the snap, which allows blockers to get underneath. And then Jason, just a little bit of a jump scare from 2020. He missed 2 games with a grade 2 high left ankle sprain. So that's a little bit of a jump scare if we don't like that. And then the overall portion, just kind of the quick elevator on Williams. Overall, Williams is a toolsy, then nuanced, and needs to develop a more unified pass rush plan. The individual traits, processing toughness, and football character, however, are reasons to bet on his upside, similar in ways to J. Pierre Paul. He projects as a starter in the NFL on the edge. So there's their kind of screenshot on Mykel Williams.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys know, but Dieter and Hutch, that it wasn't he wasn't their number one edge.
Mm-hmm.
He was their number one player on the draft, but that means ahead of Abdul Carter. So take that for what you will. I love Dieter and Hutch, man. Those are, those are the homies and everything. They're great at what they do. But that just goes to show you how high some people are on them. And again, if this idea of bringing Robert Saleh in and stepping up the run defense, okay, that's your first step. But also, if Chris Kosuric is what we think he is at this point, then you know what? Let's start making some money here with this first round pick. Chris Kosuric was banging the table for Javon Kinlaw. Then you get Javon Kinlaw, and then obviously it didn't work out. Let's just say that it didn't work out. So the pressure's on here. The pressure's on Chris Kosuric here. I challenge you to teach this young man, to develop him, because the guys you have developed have been guys who have been in the league. Charles Omenihu, Arden Key, right? DJ Jones was somebody that, he needed development. So, you helped there as well, too, because that was your first year on the line as well, too. So we'll give you that one. But all the hits that you're attributed are players who came from different organizations that you tapped into their skill set, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I need you to develop a draft pick. Give me something. Mm-hmm. If you're the guy that we think you are, if you're the guy that you're hyped to be, then this should be your ultimate chance to prove something. And I think all of these things are tied to who was influencing the pick. If the 49ers believe that Robert Saleh is here to fix the defense, especially the run defense, and Chris Kosuric is the defensive line guru, then this had to be the pick.
The Bengals. I won't say who the Bengals picked yet. That's a Twitter thing. It's not on the TV, so I won't say anything yet. But no. And the thing is with the development of Mykel Williams for Chris Kosuric is that the floor gives you a very good start already, right? The floor is a good start, and that's if the Niners were more in spot for, I guess, 2023's, let's just say a playoff appearance, then maybe you see them take a chance on a Walter Nolan, or you see them take a chance on a Shamar Stewart, because they have that kind of leeway. But with how shallow this defensive line is right now, Mykel Williams always made sense to them, and you have to trust Chris Kosuric to build. I think something that really helps, and Eagles fans know this, Georgia player, Georgia defensive lineman, Georgia pass rusher, those have worked out pretty well in the NFL in recent years. So it's coming from a place that's kind of turned a trusted location for these pass rushers. So I'm excited to see what Robert Saleh, what Chris Kosuric can do, and I'm interested to see how they stack onto this in the second, third, fourth round, because again, as we said, there's going to be so many defensive linemen taken for these 49ers.
Yeah, and I think again, they have multiple places that they can go here. Again, it's not crazy for them to double up on edge, and depending on who's there, because okay, I know you're not going to like to hear this, right? So Mykel Williams is drafted at 11. He's primarily a run guy.
Yes.
He was rotated in and out of the lineup. Wasn't an every down player, right?
33.5 defensive snaps per game in 2024.
Right. What if you go get your pass rushing edge in the second round and you start to develop that way? So I think again, when you're looking at this, there's multiple ways they can go about it. I still believe the 49ers are going to address the defensive line 2-3 more times, especially on the back end. Like if you want to take a raw developmental guy, then 5th, 6th round is the sweet spot because low risk, high reward if you get something out of him, right? And also, don't be surprised if the 49ers address edge right after the draft with a veteran. Zadarius Smith comes to mind right away off the bat. You make a call for Zadarius Smith, you bring him in as a pass rusher as well too. So again, I didn't say they drafted a part-time player, Matt. I didn't say that. I'm just saying on certain downs, move him into defensive tackle, bring in your pass rush specialist. If he can eat up blocks in this wide 9, which is what you want, because you want one-on-ones for your edge. That's the whole idea, is the defensive tackle eat up blocks. Then here you go. And Jamar Stewart's off the board to the Bengals. That is an insanely high pick. I'm glad someone else took it. I'm glad that someone else took the plunge. Very happy it wasn't the 49ers. Jamar Stewart blew up at the combine, but honestly, I'd let somebody else take a chance on this one. And Cincinnati is taking a huge gamble right here. They needed to go defense, but Jamar Stewart, man, I'm scared to death of that. I would be furious if that was high, if the 49ers took him at 11.
It's an interesting one for Cincinnati, especially with where their defense is. That's a bit of a chance. That's a chance there. And I like the athletic traits of Jamar Stewart, but at some point that production has to show up. And it never did at Texas A&M. So that's going to be an interesting one for Cincinnati. The Seattle Seahawks are now on the clock. I don't know where they go. I mean, they lost DK Metcalf. Maybe this is a situation. I like Matthew Golden. I've been big on Matthew Golden. Ideally, hopefully he doesn't go to Seattle. But hey, possibility right now. Get a weapon for Sam Darnold, but we'll see what Seattle does. Jason, any other thoughts? Anything else you got on Mykel Williams? I think we've touched on a lot of it already. But I don't think we can stress how good of a pick we think this is.
Yeah, I feel great about this. Sometimes the best pick isn't the sexiest, but the safest. And again, if we look back years down the line and Mykel's a dog and he revitalizes this run defense with Robert Saleh, then it doesn't really matter where he's taken. I do think that what I want to say is this. In a vacuum, the first round pick can make you jump to a conclusion about a draft class before day 2 and 3. And I want to point back to last season, just last year. Ricky Pearsall was the pick at 31. We all wanted it to be Cooper DeJean. So we spent an entire day before day 2 arguing about that and why we didn't like somebody like that being off the board. But then you get Dominic Pooney, who turns into a starter immediately, and then Renardo Green. Like, would you feel better about these picks if they were swapped? Meaning, if Pooney went at 31, would you have lost your mind because you never would have thought he would have went that high and then he would have performed well? And then if you get Pearsall in the second round, you're just like, oh, well, that's not so bad because you got it right. Like, you have to be able to look at the second, third, fourth round picks and then assess where the draft class is. Because if you're going in a vacuum off the first round pick, you're going to talk yourself into the entire class being bad. And I think it's leaving out big, important parts of the process. Again, if you got Mykel Williams in the second round and you get somebody who outperforms him, in the second round, I mean, like if you would have flipped those picks, doesn't really matter where you get them. So again, we need to, I know this is a lot, and I know that I have to tell myself this a lot too. Just practice a little patience with this if you're not all the way convinced with this, because if the second round pick is somebody who steps in immediately and maybe outperforms him, fine, because you'll say, hey, you could have had somebody else. But if he's a solid player and that player outperforms him, and the rest of the draft class hits, then you feel much better about these things. So again, I just want everybody to chill. We have a whole long day. It's 7 o'clock on the West Coast. I know I'm going to be up until 3 a.m., talking about this on Twitter. But it's just, you have to be able to look at the other picks, because last year's your perfect example. Ricky Pearsall no nut job mocked Ricky Pearsall in the first round to the 49ers. Not one of you psychos did. And then when you get Pooney and Renardo Green on the back end, and then you think about it, and if I just told you the 3 picks would be Pearsall, Green, and Pooney, and I didn't tell you where, then you'd feel really good about them. Right now, it's perfect time to not overreact, but like instantly react, and that's what we're doing here.
Jason, just to jump off the Niners, we're 16 picks through this thing. What was your reaction to the top 10? Just the top 10, the big trade, obviously Jacksonville trading to 2, Cleveland trading back to 5 to get Mason Graham was obviously a big thing. But to you, what was the biggest standout of the first 10 picks before the 49ers got on the clock?
Well, first of all, I love Jacksonville swinging for the fences to go get Travis Hunter.
Yes.
Look, maybe we'll look back at that pick and say, ha, 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 same old Jaguars. And you can't even blame Trent Baalke at this point. Yeah. But the Jaguars need something. And now you already have Brian Thomas on one side. You add Travis Hunter. I surmise that it's going to be 75-25 offense defense. But I love it. I love it. Because you know what? You gave up a lot. Oh, Gray Zabel to the Seahawks.
Seahawks went Gray Zabel.
Well, you know what? Fine. But it does go with what everybody has been saying and his first round buzz.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I think the Senior Bowl really pushed him up, because Gray Zabel went up against big time competition. And if you're going to knock him for anything, it's that he played at NDSU. Right? So maybe, there's a little PTSD, right? Can I add another four-letter acronym? But Zabel went up against big-time competition in the Senior Bowl and held his own. I think that, Savion Jones from LSU kind of showed a little something in the Senior Bowl against him, but largely in his one-on-ones, he did well. So, the pick is warranted, right? If he would have been the pick at 11,
God, what a great jump scare.
I would have been upset, right? Like, I would have been upset, but I would have talked myself into it, as we're going to do with every single pick. Let's not fuck around and bury the lead here. No. No matter who the 49ers pick, you could be mad in a moment. Once we start throwing out stats and we start throwing your film clips, you're going to be like, you know what? I do like this pick. So we always do this every single year. But, 18th overall pick for Gray Zabel, but it does go with all the buzz that he was getting in the mock drafts and moving up. Just not to the 49ers. I think the way that DJ was looking at it, Daniel Jeremiah, was, they need offensive line help. Yeah. But the reason that I push back on it is the 49ers would have never gone up that high for a guard.
Yeah, that was my thing.
Right. And even when they took Aaron Banks, we thought that was too rich. So now we're led to believe that there is this entire organizational shift in thinking from we're not going to take a guard that high to we're taking them at 11, on top of the fact that Robert Saleh's here. You need to fix the run defense. You have like 5 defensive linemen at this point. So I never really bought into that. But the hype with the first round and the mock draft obviously was real, because the Seattle Seahawks are trying to shore up the worst part of their team for sure.
Yeah, so we get Mykel Williams against Gray Zabel in Seattle, but then on the other side we get Jake Brendel against Walter Nolan against the Cardinals. So there's that. Jason, I think my favorite pick in the top 10, outside of the obvious, big fish, Ashton Genty with the Raiders. I love that pick. I know the Raiders have a million other players they could select for that to help them, but I am a big believer in getting fun football players to watch, especially when you're bad, and that's what Ashton Genty is going to do for the Raiders. He'd be a fun player you look forward to watching every Sunday, while the Raiders lose, by 20 points every whatever it may be. But at least have that one player to look forward to. So I like the Genty pick. Jason, we'll start with you on this one. Brian Boucher asks, who do you want with our sim pick?
Hold on. Yeah, I'm sorry. My computer's like on its like last legs. I would be fine with who I mentioned before from Tennessee, Omar Norris Scott. I would be fine with that. But I wouldn't be mad if it was Nick Skorton. I promise you, like at edge again, if we're gonna do this, let's do it. Like let's get this defensive line set up. But I don't think they're gonna go that way because they probably are gonna call up Zadarius Smith at the end of the draft and say, hey, listen, here's a 1 year, few $1 million incentive laden deal to be a rotational pass rusher for us and give us a little bit of a veteran presence. So I would love that. If I want to play Madden, if I'm trying to play Madden and I want to get fun, Jalen Noel.
Yeah.
Jalen Noel at 43. I if we want to get fun, if we're gonna start this without Brandon Ayuk early on, cool. Let's start Pearsall, Jalen Noel, and Jawan Jennings, and let's get nuts and switch the complete offensive identity of this team and start running 4 wide and start wreaking havoc on everyone. But that's just me playing Madden, and it's just trying to get one of the guys that I really like in this draft. But yeah, I think again it is probably going to be in the trenches, and if you went edge early, conventional wisdom would say defensive tackle, but I wouldn't be upset with them doubling up on edge, especially given the fact that Mykel Williams is somebody who not only just plays edge, can play defensive tackle, and you have the same sort of flexibility with Dieter Gross-Matos.
Buccaneers on the clock right now. They're about their pick. I think the name I'm looking at is Mykel Williams. He's a guy who kind of reads a little bit just in terms of what he does well, like Mykel Williams. So going back-to-back Williams would be very fun for Niners. But he's a run stopper in the middle who can develop into a solid pass rusher.
Andrew,
yeah, go ahead.
Picks in, Andrew.
Picks
I got
in,
it.
It is.
Hold on. Let me ask the chat. Chat, would you like me to spoil the pick? Because I got yelled at. People thought I was spoiling the pick, and I didn't. I didn't spoil any pick. I spoiled the first one. I'm not going to lie. I have the pick. Do you want to know it? Or do you want to just wait for it on CV? Because I have it. I'll wait.
I have it.
Either way, by the time you tell me, it's going to be up.
But I like Mykel Williams out of Ohio State. I think that's a solid pick of 43. I'm kind of curious to see what's going on with Mike Green here, just because of just his whole situation where he goes. If you want to talk about best case scenario for a rotational guy with Mykel Williams for a pass rusher, Mike Green in the second round might be an interesting one. But it's
maybe. But everybody wants me to spoil it. Everybody wants me to spoil it, so I got it. Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. That, oh my goodness, the Bucs re-signed Chris Godwin. They have Jalen McMillan. They have Mike Evans. Egbuka is going to be added to that. Sheesh, my God, those guys are loaded on offense, man. Holy cow!
Yeah, that's a good pick for them. Egbuka, he kind of felt like a player that not too many people were picking in the top 10, but a lot of people, it was kind of like, who was the the Colts drafted him last year, man. What was his name? The pass rusher out of UCLA. Oh man, I forget his name. Latu, something like that. I forget exactly what his name was, but a lot of people were talking about. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, him. People were talking about him like, oh, he might be the most surefire edge rusher in this class, and everyone had him going in the middle of the first round. It's kind of what people were saying about Egbuka. He's just a solid receiver. Nobody really wanted to pick him too high. JR feels like it'll take more than just 1 year to rebuild the DL. Getting Mykel is a good start, though. Next year, I wouldn't be surprised if DL was probably. Yeah, this is with how they handled the pass rush or the defensive line in free agency. This isn't a one fix.
Right.
They would have to use, to fix this defensive line, they would have to use 6 of their 11 picks on the defensive line. And there's just too many other needs right now for to do that. So this is a 1 year fix, but Mykel Williams really gives you that solid building block with Mykel.
I'm going to get to this, JR. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate you guys. And also, we got 74 people in here. Please, just do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up. That's going to help us out a ton. That's the best way that you can help us out. Let's have a little fun exercise because I don't have any insider information on who the pick is at 20. But I think I know who back-to-back picks are going to be, Andrew Pasquini. And I want to make sure we put this up so we can get it clipped just in case it happens.
Okay.
20, Denver Broncos on the clock. Omarion Hampton. 21, Shedeur Sanders comes off the board finally for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think that's the right back. Omarion Hampton. I thought the Broncos We're going to be a little more aggressive to get Gentry, but I don't think they'd be able to trade up before the Raiders to get him. Omarion Hampton, he picked a lot of steam in these recent months before the draft, and now he feels like a solid selection for the Broncos. And then, yeah, I mean, Shador at 21 for the Steelers. Just it's been rumored. Mike Tomlin reportedly really likes him. I think that's a very solid back-to-back. I think that's what I would be saying as well, Jason.
Perfect. And I think Matt's saying the same thing as well, too. But to JR's comment, feel like it'll take more than 1 year to rebuild the defensive line. Absolutely. And it's going to be a mix of guys that they have, rookie guys, and, who's going to be available in free agency next season, and who's available right now. Like, again, all the guys that are available right now are veteran guys who are going to be ring chasing or 1 year deals. So, like, again, that's why Zadarius Smith feels like the natural progression to go with. But yeah, it definitely does. There's no, if you think that this is going to get fixed in 1 year, that's a tough sell for anybody. You know how hard it is for somebody to do that and how unlikely that is. So I think patience is the right way to go about this. And also conventional wisdom is it's definitely not just going to be a 1 year fix unless you hit on every single defensive line player. Like I'm talking about, like, not hit like starter.
Yeah. Like
you hit like all three of your defensive tackles or three of your defensive linemen that you draft are studs. Like I'm talking about like outright, if not all pro bowlers types. Like that's the only way that you fix this right away. And then let's not forget the old injury bug, and who's going to be around and things like that. So yeah, look, the 49ers are not done prioritizing the trenches, not today, not tomorrow, again, but they have a way about going about this that I think we figured these first two rounds would be edge and defensive tackle. We just waffled on defensive tackle, then edge, or edge, then defensive tackle, or edge, right? So we have to find out. I would be shocked if the second pick at 43 wasn't a defensive player, to be honest. But, Will Johnson's still sliding right now as well, too. That's something that's on the board as well, too. The only other thing that I can think of right now, and let's just say, let's get crazy. Let's get nuts here.
Yes.
Omarion Hampton at 20, but the Bills jumped to 21 to get Will Johnson. To keep him away from Jim Harbaugh, Michigan guy, for the Chargers. So, you know what? The safe money is Omarion Hampton and then Shador Sanders. But the Chargers aren't going to draft Shador Sanders. And the further along you get through this draft, nobody else really needs a quarterback. They already got their guys. That's why they're in the position that they're in. So let's see. I think when the Steelers get on the clock, it's going to be very interesting because they may have a scenario where they trade back with the Buffalo Bills and still get to snag Shador Sanders because all the other teams in front of them have established quarterbacks. They don't need a quarterback. So that's my wild card. That's my hedge more than anything. If it's not just what I said it would be.
We'll see where it goes. Denver's still on the clock. They have not made their pick.
They're taking their time.
They're taking their time. So we'll see. Jason, we're almost.
They're trying to see if someone. 40. Here's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to see if someone goes and jumps. If New Orleans jumps Pittsburgh for Shador.
Yeah.
They're trying to see if they jump in front of them, right? Like that's what they're doing. They're taking all the calls that they can. They're putting pressure on New Orleans to say, what are you willing to give us to get to 20? Because if Pittsburgh stays at 21, Shador's gone. And then you're going to have to be fighting for Jackson Dart with the New York Giants.
And I hope the pick is in now for the Broncos. They've made their selection. That's an interesting one. I that makes sense because who's going to take Omarion Hampton behind Denver? Maybe Los Angeles, the Chargers. Well, I don't know, but like that's a good idea where maybe they trade back a little bit, but they will be making their pick. They're staying and picking at 20 for the Broncos.
They definitely were taking calls though, but like they're like, all right, we didn't get what we wanted. So you know what's crazy? Will Johnson's on the board, and so's Barron from Texas. The top
corners.
two corners.
Outside of. Wow, I just saw the name who Denver's taken. It's not Omarion Hampton. It's one of the corners. It's Jahdae Barron.
There you go.
Jordan
oh my
Schultz.
God. The Broncos defense is going to be fucking nasty again next year. They were already the number one defense and they added Barron.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
I kind of talked myself into Jade Aaron
God
at
damn.
11. You remember a couple of weeks ago when Jade Barron was kind of that 11 pick for the Niners? I kind of talked myself into him, and that's wow, that's a really good defense. That's adding
My
to a
God.
defense that didn't need much, but that's
My
an
God.
interesting pitch. That's an interesting pick for the Denver Broncos, and kind of maybe there is a bit of concern for Will Johnson with that. What it was half something.
Barron and Surtain?
Mm-hmm. That's an
I
interesting back to back.
I want outside shutdown corners on my team too, man. I know that we had to go defensive line, but like that was the vision with Will Johnson. It's just the idea that you can't throw the football on the outside, man. Like, oh my God, man.
It's a solid pick. That's all pick for Denver. I like it. So let's see what Shador does here at 21. Jay, it's about 40 minutes right now. The Steelers are now the club. Well, I mean, Denver still hasn't officially made their selection, but the Steelers will be making their selection here shortly. Jason, any we're about 45 minutes. Any final thoughts on Mykel Williams before we kind of wind down, get up out of here?
Yeah, it was like literally the best pick in the world, and the 49ers are so back, and you just need to deal with that. Regardless of whether you like the 49ers or not, you're going to be sick to your stomach when you see what Mykel Williams is now. Honestly, again, look, this had to be the move, on the defensive line. Robert Saleh's here, Gus Bradley's here. This really had to be pushed in this way towards, we're coming back and we're going to come here, but we want ultimate final say when it comes to defensive line. Now, we'll say this. I'll say that to say this. Robert Saleh, Chris Kosurik, you're on the clock. Mm-hmm. You better get the most out of Mykel Williams. Chris Kosurik, I'm more looking at you, buddy. You better. Because I don't want to hear any more about bring anybody in and he can make anybody. No. All of the guys that Chris Kosurik has developed, Kerry Hyder, Charles Omenihu, Arden Key, all were football players in the NFL before they got there. Develop me a draft pick, Chris Kosurik. That's my challenge to you. And that's part of the reason that they made this pick.
Yep.
So the pressure's on, the clock is ticking, and we're all watching. So it better be development that I see. Because if not, we're going to strip you of this whole, oh, he's a miracle worker. No, miracle work on one of our draft picks, please.
A name I'm thinking about, maybe 43 here, and I don't know where he fits in the first round. What if Jahad Campbell's at 43? A name that I kind of threw out there at 11. He kind of doesn't.
If Jahad Campbell's on the if Jahad Campbell's on the clock at 43,
yeah, sprint.
You get John Lynch to relive his safety days and have him run through everybody to bring the card up. But go for it.
I still think he goes in the first round. Nobody seems to really know where, and I've seen some people speculate he might fall to the second round. I mean that's a guy that you can really I know off-ball linebacker isn't the biggest need in the NFL today, but he was one of my favorite players in this draft, just watching the linebacker. And if the Niners can somehow figure out a way to get him, I think that would be getting Mykel Williams out of Georgia, and then you get Jahad Campbell out of Alabama, just start building an SEC defense. I will gladly take that. Steelers are not going Shador Sanders, Jason Aponte. Wilson, it sounds like the pick is Derek Harmon.
The Pittsburgh Steelers took Derek Harmon?
That I saw a tweet. Listen, it's the NFL draft. I could be lied to. Derek Harmon is the name I just saw. Aaron Wilson, I believe, tweeted, and he's been pretty right tonight. I'm going to keep refreshing my page.
Yes.
To see if,
yes. The pick is Derek Harmon. What on
earth? So Shador's out of the first round unless somebody trades up.
What the fuck are the Steelers doing?
Jordan Schultz. There it is, official. Or not official because Goodell hasn't said it.
Hold
Derek
on.
Harmon,
no, it's official. It's in. What the fuck are the Steelers doing?
Don't know.
Are you really gonna wait for that nut job Aaron Rodgers? Or if he doesn't come and he just says, I want to retire, you're gonna run Mason Rudolph out there? And you traded for DK Metcalf and already had that nut job, George Pickens?
Where's
You're
Pittsburgh
never
at?
going to get them the football, and they're going to kill everybody on the field. What are they
Pittsburgh-
thinking?
Pittsburgh doesn't have a second-round pick. Where does Pittsburgh pick again? Pittsburgh is, it looks like, if I'm judging this right, Pittsburgh's not is until 83. So that takes them out of the Dart Shaw. I don't know how to fully pronounce it. I haven't really looked into him, but interesting.
I don't understand the logic because
What do you, let's see if I get
Aaron Rodgers strikes me. Aaron Rodgers strikes me as the type that'll just say, "I'm not going." Right?
Yeah.
Magic Talking Taco, nice to see you. Get blocked. If you're sitting there and you're like waiting for Aaron Rodgers, that's got to be one of the dumbest things that you can do, because Aaron Rodgers will totally take his ball and go home because he's a nut job.
Yeah. I'm trying
But
to
taking Derek
get a
Harmon,
quote from Jared Bailey here.
go ahead.
I'm trying to see. I just texted him really quick to see if I can get a quick.
Oh, okay.
reaction.
You want to get a quote from our resident?
Yeah, I'm
Steelers.
seeing if I can. So continue. Sorry.
Okay.
You, Jason.
It just, my thing is like, if you're gonna sit there and hitch your wagon, first of all, okay, let's see this. Let's live in this world as well too. You take Shedeur Sanders, but you're still ultimately waiting for Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers shows up. Okay, so you get a year of Aaron Rodgers, but you have Shedeur Sanders, and you sit there with him, and then you get him on the field eventually. But the idea that the worst case scenario right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers could be Mason Rudolph is starting for you week 1 is insane. Like, you even leaving that up to a 1% chance when you have DK Metcalf and you have George Pickens, who will literally fight everyone on the field if they're not getting the football. And you have a 1% chance that Mason Rudolph's going to start for you, and you take a defensive tackle when you could have just taken Shedeur Sanders. This is going to be, if Mason Rudolph starts, this is going to be Mike Tomlin's first losing season. And that will be enough for them to fire him. Finally.
I'm very curious by this. And I guess they're all in on Rodgers. And that's just an interesting.
That's pretty stupid.
It's an interesting one, especially what you saw from Rodgers last year. And I don't think, I mean, Pittsburgh's a fine situation. I just don't think you're making them any. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I'm not huge personally on Shedeur Sanders, but this, if he was going in the first round, this felt like it was the spot. So now maybe the Giants trade back in. But I mean, if you want to believe was the owner's kid posting Jackson Dart on his Instagram,
Jackson Dart
might not even go to the Giants. So Jason, Derek Harmon to the Steelers. We're
Hold
at
on,
about.
real quick.
Go ahead.
Let's look, because we're gonna get out of here. But let's do this. Let's have a fun little exercise real quick.
Yeah.
So who's left? The Chargers have a quarterback. The Packers have a quarterback. The Vikings have a quarterback. The Texans have a quarterback, and the Texans are looking to move up. That's why they made that trade with the Cleveland Browns earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams at 26.
I think so in my softball league, Jason, there's a big Rams fan, and we had this. I think, could you imagine Jalen Milroe with Sean McVay? I don't think he's going in the first round. That to me was my first thought with quarterback for the Rams was Jalen Milroe for
that could be
Los
who the
Angeles.
Steelers really like. They may not like
That could
Shedeur.
be
They may
it.
really like him.
Jared, by the way, just real quick, Jared said, "I'm good with Derek Harmon, good player, interior disruptor. I like it." So there's already.
Boo! We want to crash out.
Yeah, what the hell, man? That's boring.
Boo! That's boring, man. But the Rams at 26 is very interesting.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford, how many more years did you have left?
Yeah.
Because look, again, Herbert, Love, McCarthy, Stroud, Stafford. Then obviously after that, Lamar, Goff, Daniels, Allen, Mahomes, Hurts. None of those teams, the only team that you could see in the first round still thinking about a quarterback is the LA Rams. But the LA Rams, they wanted to move up for a tight end, but both the best tight ends are off. I just that one feels interesting at 26.
I could see Minnesota trading out, a team getting a quarterback. I could see Detroit trading out. I could see Washington trading out. So
Yeah.
there's spots for a quarterback if it's going to be Shador. If not, I mean, a team that's got to be really excited for how this played out is Cleveland at 33. Maybe they go get doors with that, with that
if
situation.
If
Cleveland's got
ends
33 and 36, so they might even be able to jump in. So we'll
if
see.
Cleveland
There's
ends
a lot.
up with that draft haul that they got for number 2, and they end up with Mason Graham and a quarterback, you have to be elated. Like, for the first time in our lives, we can say that the Cleveland Browns have done something smart.
Yeah, I and like the funny thing is I saw people saying, "Oh, that's too much for Jacksonville to give up," and it's like, you could say that, but they went out there, they went and got their guy, and they got maybe the top guy in this draft. So I have a hard time believing you can overpay for the best player in a draft, in my opinion. I just think that's an all around good football trade. So that's something that's good for both sides, in my opinion. So maybe Cleveland moves up and goes and gets a quarterback as well. So we'll see what Cleveland does, Jason. It's been fun. You're on what, like 2.5 hours of draft lives right now. So I think we're gonna let that beautiful face get a little bit of a rest.
No, there's not gonna be no rest. I gotta write. I'm probably gonna put something up on NinersNation.com. If I don't know if you guys know Andrew and I. Andrew actually. This is gonna be funny.
Yeah.
So last night, around, because I usually write at night.
Yeah.
I log into Chorus, and I call KP. It's probably like 11 my time.
Okay.
I call KP and I said, "Hey, listen, I have this idea because I put out this incredible 7-round mock where I fixed the 49ers completely, and I want to write about it." And then I go on a Chorus, and Andrew Pasquini has a 3-round mock up, and Nicholas McGee has a 7-round mock up. And I go, "KP," he's like, "Yeah, that's too many mocks, man. You can't do it." And I was just like, "God damn it, Andrew." I was ready to cook on, but you know what? You saved me, because I had Walter Nolan as the first pick. Then I had an edge, and then I had a defensive interior guy going. So you low key saved me, because my mock would have been like torn to shreds. And absolutely yelled at.
What's fun is I did my 3-round using PFF, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna take Mykel Williams, a safe pick, and then Armand Bembou fell to the 11th, and I'm like, fuck. If this happened in real life, like I got it, so I ended up going Bembou because he was there. But Mykel Williams went 9, I think, in that mock, so I didn't even get a chance to take him. So, but yeah, no, man, I'm excited to see what content you get out of this draft, Jason. I'm excited to see what you about Mykel Williams, and I'm excited to see you had any live shows planned for tomorrow? Anything you going live at all?
Yeah, I'll probably go live during day 2 and 3. Avery will be here with me or whatever, so you just got to bear with me. But yeah, I'm. You need to pop in tomorrow.
I'm going to do my best. I'm doing a new Friday softball league, so I might be with you at the very top, but I have a 7:30 and an 8:30 game tomorrow. So I actually might be around 43. So we'll see. We'll see what the timing is on that. So listen, I'm excited to see where we can see tomorrow with the 49ers. I'm excited to see what the Niners do. We'll for sure be back Monday. Let's just pencil that in to talk about the whole draft, Jason. Mykel Williams, a very good start. We're excited for it. If you haven't already, subscribe to Jason Aponte's YouTube channel. It's where everything's going to happen.
Like the video,
like the videos, all that. Exciting times. I think tonight so far, Niners, good night. Let's see where it continues. Jason, any final thoughts before we do the Jason update as always?
Yup. No reason to crash out, guys. I love it. Defensive line, that's the way to go. You want run defense? You got it. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that you hated the run defense last year, and then when you address the run defense this year and say you didn't like it. Like it has to be, one or the other. Again, we can assess the first round pick after we get the rest of the picks, because we would have crashed out if it was just Ricky Pearsall, but we ended up with Pooney and Renardo Green. Again, if it's 3 picks and 2 of those guys are instant starters and 1 guy is a starter in year 2, you did a great job. Didn't really matter when it comes to where they were selected. So let's just patience.
10 more picks to go. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's fucking go Niners. Thank you, guys.
Let's go Niners, and we appreciate everyone.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.
Sprint Ride Option Podcast.